You don't expect betrayal to arrive while you're hosting dinner for your wife's family. You especially don't expect it between brisket and merlot in your own backyard on a Saturday night. But that's exactly when my life split open clean and silent, like a scene that had been waiting to tear. The worst part wasn't hearing what I heard. It was that I kept smiling through it, like a host entertaining guests who'd already decided to burn his house down. My name is Noah, 34 years old, and I own a construction company I built with calloused hands, late nights, and a truck I had to jumpstart more than I drove. I dropped out of community college at 20 because I couldn't afford to keep pretending that student loans and minimum wage could build me a future. Instead, I worked, roofed, framed, built something real. I didn't marry rich, but I did marry smart, or so I thought. Camille was the polished, ambitious lawyer I met at a local fundraiser I was dragged to by a buddy. She was sharp, magnetic, a whirlwind of wit and ambition, and somehow she chose me. I was a man who worked with his hands, while she crafted arguments that won her courtrooms. We dated, married, and I paid for her law school while she climbed the ladder. I thought we were building a life together. Turns out she was building a trap. Her family never liked me, not really. Her dad, Gerald, is a financial advisor who talks like every conversation is a business pitch. Her mom, Lynn, sells luxury real estate and once asked if I had a backup plan in case construction goes out of style. Her brother, Ethan, treats his MBA like a personality and walks into every room like he owns it. Her little sister, Maisie, is the only one who ever looked me in the eyes when we talked. Camille said I shouldn't take their attitude personally, they just didn't understand our kind of love. Maybe they understood her better than I did. Camille insisted we host the spring dinner again this year, like always. She wanted everything perfect, like it was proof we'd made it. I woke up at 6 to prep the brisket I'd been dry aging all week, pressure wash the patio, and hang fairy lights she picked out from some overpriced boutique. Camille spent the morning nitpicking everything from the way I folded the napkins to the temperature of the wine. She was on edge, but I chalked it up to nerves. Her family always brought out her worst side. But this was different, off, like a room that used to feel safe but now made your skin itch. Camille kept glancing at her phone, then hiding it like it might explode. She closed her laptop whenever I entered the room, started taking calls in the laundry room, and spoke in a lower voice than usual. After 7 years together, you learn the difference between normal stress and deception. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't even want to ask. Her parents arrived at 4, wine in hand and judgment in their eyes. Gerald asked if I'd survived the market dip, while Lynn criticized the throw pillows she gave us for Christmas. Ethan strutted in like he was doing us a favor, his wife trailing behind, already bored. Maisie hugged me like she meant it and asked if I was okay, which I wasn't yet, but I nodded anyway. Camille fluttered around them like everything was normal. But my gut was twisting. By 6, we were setting the table with our good plates, the ones we got as wedding gifts but never used. I realized we were 2 chairs short and offered to grab the folding ones from the garage. I stepped outside and walked along the house toward the side door. That's when I heard them, Camille and Ethan, standing just around the corner near the hedges. They didn't hear me, and what they said broke me in half. Ethan said, "I still can't believe you married this loser. Dad's right, you need to divorce him before you get stuck with kids." Camille exhaled smoke and replied, "I'm already working on it. My lawyer says we can take half his business too." I froze. The world stopped moving. My ears rang, but I heard every word. They laughed about how clueless I was, about how she'd wasted her best years playing house while I played construction. She said someone named Dominic was a better fit, someone who understood her world. She said the timing would be perfect once she made partner, and then she'd be free. I stood there like a fool, holding onto 2 plastic chairs and the last pieces of my trust. My heartbeat slowed. My instincts sharpened. I backed away from the corner like a ghost, slipped into the garage, and grabbed the chairs. I took 3 deep breaths, swallowed the scream clawing at my throat, and walked back inside. I smiled. I served wine. I carved meat. I let her mother compliment the brisket and pretended it meant something. I laughed at Gerald's jokes and studied Camille's face like a stranger. She didn't blink. That night, after everyone left, Camille kissed my cheek and said I was a perfect host. She told me to rest while she cleaned up. I said I would. But instead, I opened her laptop, new password, predictable logic. 3rd try, I was in. And everything came crashing down. Emails to a divorce lawyer, dating back 3 months. Spreadsheets of our assets, breakdowns of my business revenue, strategies to maximize what she'd get in a split. She'd been moving money into a hidden account, small enough amounts to stay under notification thresholds. It was deliberate. It was calculated. It was betrayal at its most intimate. And then I found the text with Dominic. Sweet nothings, plans for the future, mentions of after Noah's out of the picture, dates going back 6 months. I felt cold, detached, like I was floating outside my body watching some other man's life implode. But I didn't wake her, didn't scream. I sat there in the dark while she slept upstairs in our bed, the bed I built, in the house I bought with money I earned. My mind was racing, but my hands were steady. I needed a plan. Revenge isn't about rage. It's about control. The next morning, Camille acted like nothing was wrong. She made coffee, asked if I could fix the leaky faucet in the guest bathroom, and reminded me to pick up her dry cleaning. I nodded, told her I was feeling a bit off, probably coming down with something. She touched my forehead, gave me a fake little pout, and told me to take it easy. I said I might call out of work for the first time in years. She smiled, kissed me, and left for the office. The moment her car pulled out of the driveway, I got to work. First stop, my accountant, Dennis, a quiet guy who'd been with me since year 3 of the business. We met at a diner near my shop, neutral ground, no risk of being overheard. I laid it all out for him, every screenshot, every email, every spreadsheet Camille had hidden. Dennis looked like he'd swallowed a brick. Then he pulled out his iPad and said, "Noah, I think you need to see this." Turns out Camille had already contacted him weeks earlier, posing like she was helping me prep for a new investor pitch. Dennis, not knowing anything was off, had shared just enough surface-level info to raise red flags later. But he didn't like the way she phrased her questions, so he kept the interactions light. Now, looking back, he realized she was gathering ammunition, seeding a false trail of financial mismanagement to use in court. I felt sick. It wasn't just betrayal, it was a hostile takeover. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. For the next 2 hours, Dennis and I went over every questionable transaction Camille might try to weaponize. We cleaned up the books, documented transfers, clarified payments, and drew hard lines showing she had zero involvement in the business. We flagged early tax filing she helped with during our broke years, making sure nothing could be twisted against me. We even restructured 2 vendor contracts to lock her out of any future claims. By the time we finished, I wasn't angry. I was focused. Next stop, the bank. I had a gut feeling about something. Ethan had said something about their parents helping when the time comes. I met with our financial advisor, showed him my ID and marriage certificate, and asked if any recent activity had been requested on our joint assets. And there it was. Camille had applied for a home equity line of credit against our house, just under $200,000. The house I'd bought with my pre-marriage savings, the house I'd renovated myself, the one still listed mostly in my name. The paperwork was moving through the system. One more week and she'd have had access to that line of credit. My name was still required for approval. Thank God, but the audacity of her trying made my blood run hot. I shut it down immediately, froze any pending changes, and moved exactly half of our joint savings into my personal account, down to the last penny I had put in. Was it petty? Maybe. But she was planning to bleed me dry while playing the loyal wife. That night, Camille came home cheerful. She made her signature lemon garlic chicken and poured us both wine like we were celebrating something. She asked about my day and I told her I just rested, watched TV, and napped with the dog. She smiled, said she missed days like that, and leaned in to kiss me. I kissed her back, tasted ash behind the wine. Then I excused myself to clean the dishes and clear my mind. After she went to bed, I installed 2 small audio recorders, one in the living room, another near her desk in the home office. Perfectly legal in our state, since it's a shared residence, but it still made my stomach turn. I didn't want to become this man, paranoid, sneaky, recording his wife. But then again, she'd already become the kind of wife who planned a haste with her brother and her side piece. The line was crossed long before I picked up the microphone. I was just adapting to the terrain. The next day, Camille got another text during dinner. I caught a flash of the name, Dominic. New client, she said, after a slight pause. Big case. Time sensitive. I nodded, cut my steak, and said nothing. She put her phone face down, clearly rattled. After dinner, she said she had work to finish and disappeared into the office. I gave her 20 minutes, then tiptoed down the hallway and listened by the door she'd left slightly ajar. Her voice was low, too soft for business. It wasn't her lawyer tone. It was the voice she used in bed. No, he doesn't suspect anything. Yes, I miss you too, just a little longer. I stepped back like I touched a hot stove and walked into the kitchen to wash dishes I'd already cleaned. That night, I printed a copy of the divorce papers from the county website and left them on the nightstand unsigned, blank, but unmistakable. When I got out of the shower the next morning, they'd been moved slightly. She'd seen them, but said nothing. Neither did I. The silence between us had changed color. I reached out to a few old clients, people who owed me favors or liked talking more than working. One of them mentioned that Dominic wasn't just a new guy in Camille's life. He was someone who had been at multiple family events, birthdays, holidays, even a cruise Camille insisted I skip to finish a job that launched our company. My stomach dropped. I dug deeper. And there it was. Dominic had dated Camille in college, just before I came into the picture. They'd stayed friends, even as I worked 2 jobs to fund her bar prep. I suddenly remembered an old picture on Facebook I once asked about her and Dominic on a ski trip, her saying it was just a group outing. Now I knew better. This wasn't an affair. This was a long game. That night she initiated intimacy for the first time in months. She lit candles, wore lingerie I hadn't seen in years, and whispered things that used to mean something. I played along, performed, but inside I felt nothing. It was like sleeping beside a stranger in my own bed. Afterward, while she slept, I created a detailed spreadsheet of every dollar I'd spent supporting her education and career. Tuition, rent, bar prep, professional wardrobe, Uber rides from night classes, even that silver MacBook I gave her on graduation night. The total came out to $143,600, not including the compound interest if I'd invested it in the business instead. I stared at the number for a long time, then saved the file to the same tablet I'd bring to our next family dinner. The next morning, I met Maisie for coffee. Maisie showed up to the cafe in a hoodie and no makeup, which was rare for her. She usually dressed sharp, like her mother raised her to be a walking resume. But today she looked tired, nervous. She picked at her muffin and avoided eye contact for the first 10 minutes. Then she sighed and said, "I know what Camille's doing. I've known for months." She told me about the weekend at their parents' lake house, one I hadn't attended because of a water damage emergency at a job site. That's when she caught Camille and Dominic kissing on the dock, drunk, careless, acting like no one else in the world existed. Maisie confronted her, and Camille swore it was a one-time mistake, blaming stress, confusion, and alcohol. But a few weeks later, she got drunk again after another family dinner and told Maisie everything: the divorce plans, the timeline, the business grab. She said you'd never see it coming, Maisie whispered. I stared into my coffee and tried not to imagine what else had been said when I wasn't around. "I'm telling you now because I can't watch this anymore," she added. "I always thought you were good for her. I don't know why my family treated you like dirt." She looked ashamed, like she was apologizing on behalf of blood she didn't choose. I nodded, thanked her for telling me, and asked her not to say anything to Camille yet. "Whatever you're planning," she said, "make it count." The first promised her I would. That night I created a fake emergency. A client crisis for my company, something dramatic enough to require urgent input from Camille and her family. I called her while she was still at the office and said I needed help navigating a potential lawsuit that could sink everything. I let my voice crack a little, told her I was scared, said I needed support. She hesitated, then agreed. She offered to host the meeting at our house that Friday night, just like another family dinner, only this time with panic on the menu. I said it was perfect. Told her to invite her parents, Ethan, even Maisie. She didn't question it. She still thought I was in the dark. That made me smile for the first time all week. The next day I gathered my evidence like a trial lawyer prepping for court. I compiled the email threads with her attorney, organized the bank transfers, labeled the audio recordings, and laid out the financial spreadsheet of my support through law school. Everything Camille thought I'd never see was now sorted, printed, and backed up in 3 places. I loaded it all onto a tablet and a backup USB drive. I picked up her favorite dessert from that bakery downtown she loved. I wanted everything to feel normal until it didn't. I also had a long talk with my business partner, Ricky, a guy I'd known since high school who co-owned 20% of the company. He was floored by what I told him. But once he saw the evidence, he backed me completely. "Whatever you need," he said. "Just say the word." I knew that once the storm hit, I'd need allies not just in court, but in business. Friday came faster than I expected. Camille was pacing around the kitchen, organizing napkins like we were hosting a fundraiser instead of a firing squad. I watched her from the doorway, memorizing the details of the woman I used to love, the little dimple in her chin, the way she always tucked her hair behind her ear when nervous. She was humming. Happy. Or maybe just proud of herself. It was the last day she'd ever feel in control. Her parents arrived first, Gerald already asking what the client emergency was and how he might strategize a solution. Ethan showed up smug as ever, his wife looking bored and vaguely annoyed. Maisie came last and gave me a nod at the door, subtle message that she was ready. Everyone took their places at the table, just like they had at the last dinner. Same plates, same wine, same chairs, but a very different agenda. Camille touched my arm. "You okay?" she whispered, her voice dripped with faux concern. I looked her dead in the eyes and smiled. Better than ever. Then I stood up, wine glass in hand, and raised it to the room. "I want to propose a toast," I said. To family, to loyalty, and to finally seeing things clearly. Confusion settled over their faces like a fog. Gerald looked at me, suspicious. Camille forced a smile and lifted her glass. I took a sip, then sat down slowly. "So, about this business emergency," I began, placing my tablet on the table. "Turns out the issue isn't with my clients. It's a lot closer to home." Camille's smile faltered. Gerald leaned back, arms crossed. Ethan rolled his eyes. I tapped the screen and let the audio recording play. Camille's voice filled the room. "Already working on it. My lawyer says we can take half his business." Ethan chimed in, "I still can't believe you married this loser." There was silence. Then Lynn gasped and covered her mouth. Gerald's face went stiff, but he said nothing. Camille turned pale. "I overheard this last week, but I wanted to be sure," I said. "So I did some digging. I showed them the bank transfer history, the hidden account, the email trail with her attorney. Every click revealed another betrayal. Then I pulled up the spreadsheet, $143,600 of my money that helped Camille become the very person now trying to gut me." Camille finally spoke, her voice trembling. "Noah, I can explain." "Explain what?" I said. "That you used me for 7 years. That you had a backup husband waiting in the wings?" I turned to Gerald. "Did you know she was cheating? Or just that she planned to rob me blind?" His jaw clenched, but he didn't answer. Then I dropped the final hammer. "Did Camille tell you Dominic is married too?" I asked. That froze the room. I had coffee with his wife 2 days ago. Lovely woman. Very interested in Camille's texts. Camille's eyes widened. She looked like she might faint. Gerald stood up so fast he knocked over his chair. Gerald stood there, red-faced, his chair tipped over behind him like the balance he'd lost. "This is ridiculous," he snapped. Not at Camille, but at me, like I was the one who'd committed treason. "We're leaving," he barked, but Camille didn't move. She was frozen, staring at the screen like if she blinked, it might disappear. Lynn sat back in stunned silence, holding her wine glass like a shield. Ethan was already pulling out his phone, probably to delete messages he thought I hadn't seen. I turned to him slowly. "Don't bother, Ethan. I already backed everything up, including the part where you laughed about how stupid I was." His wife looked at him like she'd never seen him before, a storm of disgust in her eyes. He stopped tapping and quietly set his phone on the table. Camille reached for my hand, her voice cracking. "Noah, please, it wasn't like that." I pulled my hand back like she was poison. "Really? Then what was it like?" She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. So I kept going. "Was it confusion when you kissed Dominic at the lake house? Was it confusion when you drained our savings and lied about why you were coming home late?" Camille looked around for help, but no one came to her rescue. Gerald was too angry to see straight, Lynn too shocked, and Ethan too busy trying to shrink into his expensive sweater. "We were growing apart," she finally blurted, grabbing at straws. "It just happened. I didn't plan for it to go this far." I laughed, cold and sharp. "Camille, you planned a financial ambush with spreadsheets and legal consultations. You moved money in increments designed not to trigger bank alerts. Don't insult me by pretending this wasn't premeditated." Gerald tried to regain control of the moment. "Whatever problems you two have, this isn't the place. You're right," I said, cutting him off. "It should have happened in court. But I figured you deserved to see the truth behind your perfect daughter before you hired a team of lawyers to pretend otherwise." That shut him up. For a second, the only sound in the room was the low hum of the wine fridge. Then Camille's phone buzzed again. "Dominic." I glanced at the screen and let the silence stretch. Still messaging you, huh? I asked quietly. We want to read it out loud for the group. Camille snatched the phone and locked it. Her face had gone from pale to something darker, fear, maybe, or the slow realization that this wasn't going to end with her in control. Noah, I know I hurt you, she said, softer now. But we can fix this. Please, let's just talk privately, just you and me. There's nothing to fix, I replied. You didn't break something. You detonated it. Lynn stood up then like she'd finally come out of a daze. Camille, is it true? She asked. All of it. Camille didn't answer. That silence was louder than a confession. I took a breath, leveled my voice, and turned to Gerald. You once said I wasn't smart enough for college, that I'd always be the guy with dirty hands and no real future. Well, Gerald, I may work with my hands, but I built something. What exactly have you built besides a family full of liars? He lunged toward me, eyes wild, but Ethan caught him just in time. It was pathetic. It was also the most honest he'd ever been with me. I stood my ground while Gerald cursed me, his face redder than the wine on the tablecloth. Camille was crying now, quietly, the kind of tears that come when someone realizes the mask is never going back on. Maisie was the only one who moved to clean the broken glasses. We locked eyes for a second, hers full of regret, mine already looking beyond this house. I turned to Camille and said, I want you all out of my home. Tonight. She blinked. Noah, wait out. One by one they left. Gerald still shouting threats, Lynn weeping silently, Ethan avoiding eye contact, his wife already halfway out the door. Maisie paused, her hand on the doorframe. I'm sorry, she whispered. I always thought you deserved better. I nodded, not trusting my voice to respond. Then Camille and I were alone in a house that suddenly felt 3 sizes too big. She sat at the edge of the table, eyes vacant, makeup streaked, lips trembling. Where are you going? She asked. I picked up the overnight bag I'd packed 2 days earlier and slung it over my shoulder. Hotel, I said. Tomorrow I'll come by while you're at work and take the rest of my things. She stood. You planned all of this? I looked at her dead on. I learned from the best. As I opened the door, she called after me, You'll regret this. My father wasn't bluffing about the lawyers. I didn't answer. I didn't slam the door, didn't look back. I walked into the night like I was walking out of a dream, one where I had been the fool, and I didn't stop until I reached the hotel. That night I slept better than I had in months. No more guessing, no more pretending, no more trying to fix something that was rotting from the inside. I woke up early the next morning, made coffee, and stared at the ceiling for an hour. Not from sadness, from peace. The kind of peace that only comes after demolition. Later that day I went back to the house when Camille was gone. I took what mattered, my tools, my clothes, family photos, and the dog. Left everything else. Left the wedding photo on the mantle. Left my house key on the counter with a sticky note that read, Do not contact me directly. All communication goes through the lawyers. Then I moved into a small apartment near my workshop, just enough space for me and the dog. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. It was clean, untouched by her lies. It was a foundation I could trust. For 2 days I stayed completely off the grid, no social media, no calls, no messages. I unpacked in silence, walked my dog, and let the apartment stay half empty on purpose. Every cardboard box felt like proof I had survived a fire, and now I was living among the ashes. I ate simple meals, slept through the night, and felt something I hadn't in years. Control, peace. On the 3rd morning I turned my phone back on. It immediately began vibrating in my hand, message after message from Camille. 47 WhatsApp texts, all sent over the course of 3 days. The first ones were all rage. How dare you humiliate me like that? Then came the guilt trips, you've destroyed everything we built. By message 25 she was bargaining. I'll cut off Ethan, I'll go to therapy, we can fix this, she wrote. I was just scared I made a mistake. A mistake that took 6 months of planning, secret accounts, and backup boyfriends. By message 40 her tone changed again. Dominic just called me, he ended things. Said he wants to work things out with his wife. I have nobody now. That one almost made me feel something. Almost. I read the final few texts while sipping coffee by the window, my dog snoring softly beside me. The last one came at 3:14 a.m. Please just tell me what you want. Money, the house, name it. I'll sign anything. Just talk to me. She still didn't get it. This was never about money. It was about betrayal. I responded with one line, I've sent the divorce papers to your office. Please direct all future communication through our attorneys. 10 minutes later, I blocked her number. It was the cleanest cut I'd ever made. No theatrics, no final argument, just silence. That afternoon, I got a call from Mike, my attorney. He said Rachel Dominic's wife had reached out. She'd seen the messages I'd sent her and apparently did her own digging. Turns out, Dominic had a habit of charming women into schemes like this, and Camille wasn't the first. Rachel wanted to compare notes for legal purposes. She also sent a link to a support group for spouses dealing with financial deception and divorce. I didn't plan on joining the group, but I appreciated the gesture. There's something oddly comforting about knowing you're not the only one who trusted the wrong person. We always imagine betrayal as something dramatic, like screaming matches or thrown wine glasses. But sometimes it's slow, calculated, smiling at you over dinner while the knife is already in your back. Later that week, I took the dog on a long hike through a state park about an hour out. The trail was quiet, the sky cloudless, and for the first time in a long time I felt light. Like something had been surgically removed from my soul, and the scar left behind didn't hurt, it just reminded me to be smarter next time. At the top of the ridge, I stopped, sat on a flat rock, and just breathed. No phone. No Camille, just me. When I got back to the parking lot, I saw a new message from Maisie. Heard you moved out. Camille's staying with our parents. Dad's been raging, but Mom's starting to ask real questions. That perfect daughter mask is cracking. I smiled, not out of pettiness, out of justice. Truth has a way of spreading like fire or light. I wrote back, thanks for letting me know. Hope you're okay in all this. She replied within minutes. Better than okay, actually. I told them I'm dropping out of the grad program they forced me into. I'm finally going to pursue what I want. Guess your courage rubbed off. That message hit me harder than anything Camille ever sent. Sometimes we think we're just surviving, but it turns out we're setting someone else free in the process. I sat in my truck and thought about how many years I spent trying to prove my worth to people who never really looked at me. But I also thought about the people who did see me, Ricky, Dennis, Maisie, even Rachel. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. The divorce finalized faster than anyone expected. Camille signed everything, maybe out of shame, maybe out of fear I'd keep exposing more. I kept the business, the house, the dog. She kept her job and a family who now looked at her with fresh, unfiltered eyes. She lost the one thing she valued most, control. I never saw her again, not in person anyway. A few mutual acquaintances said she was quieter now, more reserved. I didn't care. I wasn't watching. I was too busy rebuilding not just my life, but myself. Day by day, brick by brick. I still work with my hands, still take early calls and late jobs, still eat lunch from the same sandwich shop down the block. But now, when I look in the mirror, I see a man who didn't break. I see a man who was underestimated and didn't just survive, but came back sharper, stronger, and smarter. The funny thing about demolition is that it always looks like chaos at first, dust, wreckage, noise. But if you know what you're doing, it's just the start of something better, something clean, something new. The foundation always matters more than the facade. And this time, I'm building for me. Let me tell you something I wish I had understood earlier. Trust is not just about believing in someone, it's about protecting yourself while you do. For years, I gave everything I had, my time, my money, my energy, my love to someone who looked me in the eyes and called me her partner, all while planning her escape behind my back. And you know what? It wasn't the betrayal that hurt the most. It was realizing I saw the red flags and chose to paint them white. I kept telling myself love meant sacrifice. I just didn't realize I was the only one sacrificing. Here's the truth no one tells you: loyalty without boundaries is a guaranteed way to get used. I thought I was being a good man, working hard, staying faithful, putting her first. But I lost myself in the process. I let someone else's ambition rewrite my worth. I thought building her dreams meant we were building ours. Turns out I was just the scaffolding she used to climb higher and then planned to tear down. But here's the beauty of it all. When everything you built with someone else falls apart, you finally have a chance to build something real with yourself. That pain, that anger, that betrayal, you can either let it destroy you or let it redefine you. I chose the second. I didn't burn the bridge, I exposed it. I didn't scream, I showed the truth. And in doing that, I found something stronger than revenge. I found self-respect. So if you're listening to this and you've been lied to, cheated on, underestimated, or made to feel small, hear me when I say this: you are not broken. You are not weak. You were just too generous with your heart in a world that sometimes rewards manipulation. But that ends today. You don't need closure from the person who hurt you. You need clarity with yourself. And once you have that, you'll never be the same. I walked out of that house with nothing but my dog and a bag of clothes, and I've never felt freer. Sometimes you have to lose everything to realize what was holding you back. You don't need validation. You need peace. And peace doesn't come from making them understand, it comes from never letting them matter again. Protect your energy. Trust slowly. Love deeply, but only those who prove they deserve it. And never, ever forget when they think they've buried you, it's because they forgot. You're a seed, and now it's time to grow.